Alright, today we're going to be covering more percent issues like we did in the last few videos. This time we'll be doing percent increase and decrease, or we will be doing successive percent. These are not that difficult in concept, but some people are thrown off by these, so I just want to run through some of them with you so that they don't trip you up, and you'll have a plan before you get there. So percent increase, decrease, and successive percent. Let's get to it. Alright, I'm going to do the percent increase or decrease first. Sometimes it'll be called a rate of change or difference in rate or just rate. It kind of depends on the editor of your textbook and the particular class you're in. It may cover different, it may be covered by different titles or different theme. But it's the same thing. I just want to get you the concept. That way, whatever it's called in your textbook or whatever, you'll be okay. The key to percent increase or decrease, rate of change, whatever, is this little picture here. It looks like a little, a little snow cone falling on somebody's head, or a little clown guy with a point. I don't know what it is, but if you just remember that, maybe the picture will help you remember. So we have this. It's actually a Greek letter delta. The line here, if you remember from the previous videos, means divided by. Even if you don't remember from the previous videos, it still means that. And this is an O for original. So delta in other fields of study means difference or change. So you might just remember that's difference divided by original. Again, this is not difficult, but if people are going to trip up, it's typically going to be right there. They will mistakenly put the last thing that's listed. For example, in our first example, if heating fuel, propane or whatever, went from $1.20 to $1.80, people will find the difference. They typically can remember that part, and divided by something, they typically remember that part. But then they'll put the 180 there because it was the last one listed. Be sure it's the original. Sometimes the original will be listed first. Sometimes the original will be listed last in the situation that you're given or the situation in which you find yourself. So be sure you're dividing by original. Difference divided by original. Weird looking hat on top of a little round head. Or whatever else you remember. But that's the deal here. I'm going to work through these two for you so you can kind of see this in action. So 120 to 180. Notice I put the arrow. When I'm doing stuff like this and I'm calculating things or shifts in whatever it is, I always put the arrow there. I didn't used to do that, but then I started making the same mistake everybody else did and putting the wrong thing here on the bottom. So I started doing the arrows, this to that. That way I can remember the original. I used to even put a line under the original until I got to the place where the line helped, where the arrow helped. So we're going to try this. Okay, remember, first we write our formula first. We faithfully write our formula first, faithfully forever. So we're going to start off with this one, and we're going to do our little formula, difference divided by original. So the difference between these, and you just subtract. You put the larger one on top. It doesn't matter what order it came in. Put the larger one on top, subtract the lesser one, and you get the difference. Again, in that instance, it doesn't matter which one came first. So we're just going to subtract those two, and that would give us this. And we divide that by the original. The originally was here, because then it increased to that. So this is the original. Now we have 60 hundredths divided by 1 and 20 hundredths. Or you might say 0.60 divided by 1.20, or whatever that is, and you just divide that out. This will come out to 1/2. You knock off the zeros, and then if you just kind of, the decimals are in line, but if you double the 0.6, you will get 1.2. This will divide into that one time. 0.6 will divide into that 2 times. It reduces to 1/2. And if we do that to a percent, we know that that's 50%. You might know it's 50% right away. You might need to divide that out, 1 divided by 2, and that would get you this decimal, and then you do a double zoop, and that will get you your percent. So this is a 50%, and then you look back. Now, did it increase or decrease? Well, it increased from $1.20 to $1.80. So there was an increase. And depending on, again, the editor of your textbook or what your instructor wants to do, you may need to notate that, or they may just ask, well, what was the percent change? Then it would be 50%. Now when we look first, we might not think that, but we have to work it out this way, and this will give us the truth to set us free. Let's look at another one. Okay, let's look at this one. And I'll get another marker. What's that about? Okay, so we'll get this one. Okay, so now we look at this one, and let's say we're selling units of something. Last week we sold 200, but this week we sold 160. Or you could say, well, this week we sold 160 items. Last week we sold 200 items. What was the percent increase or decrease? What was the change? What was the growth? Some textbooks say. Well, you do the same thing. You write your formula first, faithfully forever, and then you fill in your formula with the information. Delta means change. What is a change? What is the difference between 160 and 200? If you subtract that, you realize that it's 40. And the original, the O is for original. The original is, in this case, it's 200. So I go 200. And now 40 divided by 200. Zeros, I can knock the zeros off. And 4 and 20, I can reduce that. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So it's 1/5. And if you know that that's 20% already, then you're already home free. If not, you take 1 divided by 5. Put your decimals in place. This is going there 2. 10 times 0. Bring down your other 0. 0. And yay! We're done. It came out nice and even. So we have that decimal, and we move it over to 20%. So there is a 20%, and then we look back, decrease, because it went from 200 down to 160. So that's a percent increase or decrease. Pretty easy, no problem there. Just remember that it's the change divided by the original. And then you'll be home free, good to go. Next one, we're going to go over here. Successive percent. The key to this one is doing one step at a time. That's the case that throws people off. I'm going to do one where it's the one step at a time, and this one also, if you do it one step at a time, you'll never go wrong as long as your arithmetic is correct. Now on this one there is a little bit of a shortcut, but again, if you go one step at a time, you can't really lose. It's kind of a safety feature in there. So let's get to this one. So first off, we have a $40 sweater, let's say. It's originally $40. Now we want to know how much that sweater is going to be. However, there's a 10% off sale store-wide, so that would cover your sweater. But there's also a 5% sales tax on your purchase, so we have to figure out what that is. So I'm going to figure that out for you. Let me erase this, and then we're going to get to that. The key to these is the reading. I mean, you do it one step at a time, but also in the reading of it, because sometimes in the reading will be your issue, not so much the mathematics. So in this first case, 10% off, 15%, or 5%. Most people want to smish them together for 15% and just use that. And sometimes you can do that, but in this case you can't. That's why if you do one step at a time, you cover it for both times. So let's try that one. First, we get to 10% off. So we're going to start with the $40, and we're going to take the 10% off of that. The box over here, this is our original price right here. This whole thing in the kind of purpley kind of color, that's the whole thing. But this is 10% off of that. We're taking this 10% off. So we use that, the whole box of the $40, and we're taking 10% off of that. So what is 10% of 40? We covered that in the Jute Powell lesson, and you may have another way to do this. But if we just had the percent, 10% of $40. And we need to know that. So we Jute Powell it, or you can just change 10% to a decimal and multiply. Either way gets you there. So 40 times 10 is 40. Add the other 0, divided by 100, and we find out it's $4. So $4 off of the 40. So we come over here, and we see that we had $40 to begin with, minus the $4 gives us $36 as a subtotal so far. So once we take this off, this whole block here, including the green, is $36. Now the next thing is, well, we have 5% tax. Well, 5% tax on what? 5% tax on the $40? No, because it's not on $40. The sales tax is only on what you're paying after all the sales coupons or whatever. So 5% will be on this remainder of the thing, which is $36. So it's 5% of $36. And I'm going to solve this one the other way. I'm going to change that to a decimal first. 5% of $36. So we have 30, 15, 18, And now we know that our decimal, 2 places here, has 2 places there. So it's ended up being $1.80 tax. So what do we do with tax? Do we add it or do we subtract it? We add it. So we add that $1.80 to the $36 that was left over after we took that 10% chunk off. The tax is only on what you're actually paying for, because once you get that 10% off, it's gone. So it doesn't exist anymore. So it's the 5% on what is left over after that. So we end up with $37.80 for that sweater that was originally $40. See how that works? One step at a time. Now this next one is a little bit original, a little bit different. I was reading the word original there. If you have a $280 choice, that's the cell phone you want, let's say, but there's a 10% sale because of the season or whatever, and so there's 10% off of that $280 cell phone. However, in order to get you to kind of buy it, they're even offering, since you're a previous customer already, they're going to give you a 5% incentive discount off of the list price. The list price is the original price, so that one will lead people to make some mistakes on this one. Now, if the 10% off is off of the original list price, and this is also off of the original list price, in that case, you can smish them together and then just do one thing. So 10% plus 5% is 15%, because they are both off of the original price. This is not off of this is off of the whole thing. In that case, it's a little different. So we can do what we did earlier, change that to a decimal if we wanted to, or we could do power either way. And then we multiply. 0, 8, 2, add those. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Have our decimal there. $42. Was that how much it cost? Yep. No, that's the amount of our discount. Don't fall for that either. If it was multiple choice, that would be an exact wrong answer for you. Don't let them do that to you. So we got $42. The $280 that was originally for your cell phone, minus the $42 even. We subtract there. And your cell phone now, if you buy now while supplies last, will only be $238. So don't let this stuff mess you up. Again, the percent increase or rate of change is the difference over the original. That's where people will drop it. So read carefully here. Read carefully also, because if it's successive percents successively chipping away at the same thing, then you have to watch that. Here, if they're both going toward the original one price, then you can sandwich them together. But anyway, just a little ditty into the percent increase, decrease, rate of change, or successive percent. Have fun.